California dreaming about you.
Hey guys, SimCoder here, and today we are going to go on our WhatsApp clone app, and we are going to work on the login feature. And I'm talking about login with the phone number, so that's a peculiar thing that WhatsApp has that we are going to try and replicate. So yeah, let's just jump into it, and I'm going to go into my Firebase dashboard, and yeah, in here the first thing that I want you to do is to go into Authentication and SignIn method, and now we are going to enable phone. I already have it enabled, but you are simply going to come in here, click enable, save, and leave it at that. Okay, now we are going to jump into the docs, which you should have right here. Otherwise, simply search on Google and you'll find it with no problem. And we are going to click get started for Android. Okay, now the reason why I'm here is because we need a couple of dependencies that that are provided to us through here. So the first one that we need is the core Firebase. I'm going to jump in here into my Gradle. You can go into yours, which is this one, module app. Okay, and I'm going to give it some space in here and say implementation. That's okay. Now we also need the auth Firebase. Yeah. So that's the last one that we'll need for today. Implementation, that and that. Okay, make sure you have those and that they are the same version. So I'm going to downgrade the auth because it is up by 0.1, but yeah, make sure these two are the same. Now click sync. Okay, so after it has finished syncing, you can close the Gradle because you won't be needing it anymore in this lesson, and we are going to jump into the main activity that we created when we created the project. So I'm going to click activity main to bring up the XML for this activity, and I'm going to change the constraint layout into a linear layout simply because it is much easier to work with if you just want to get something done, not a really complicated layout. Okay, and now we need two edit texts, and one will be for the user to input the phone number, and the second one will be for the user to input the code for the verification code that the user receives. Okay, so let's say wrap content, not text, let's say hint, enter phone number, ID, phone number. Okay, now we'll need another edit text as I was saying, but this time it is for the code. So enter code. Let's simply give it an ID of code. Okay, now I don't want it to be horizontal, so I'm going to change the orientation to vertical so that it is much easier to understand. And now we'll simply add a button, and the button will be text send verification codes. The ID will be verified. Okay, to make it simple, and that's it. This will be our login layout, so we can now go into the activity and actually start doing some code. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is to add the edit texts and phone number and code. Okay, I'm going to also add the button in here, even though it didn't need to be global, but just keep everything put together. Let's do it like this, and I called it verify, but I'm going to change it to send because it makes more sense. So okay, send. Okay, that's it. Now we must do the find view by IDs for all of this. So phone number equals to find view by ID r.id phone number, and in here it is supposed to be mcode. Okay, mcode equals to find view by ID r.id.code, and the same thing for the send button, find view ID r.id.send. Okay, so that's it. Now we can actually start to work with Firebase code. Okay, so the first thing that we must do, and because this is the first activity that is launched in the app, we must first do Firebase app.initialize app this, and this will get everything started so that we can actually do some coding and use Firebase within our project. Okay, so now we are going to do the onClick listener for the mSend button. Set onClick listener, new onClick listener. Let's make this a bit bigger. Okay, and say start phone number verification. Okay, and this is a function that we are going to create right now. So, oops, simply click Alt Enter, Enter, and main activity. Okay, and this will allow us to simply make a call for something to happen. So this is straight out of the Firebase documentation. So I'm going to do phone of provider dot get instance dot verify phone number. And now for the phone number, well, the phone number is whatever is inside mphone number. So I'm going to go in here and say mphone number dot get text dot toString. Okay, then we are simply going to place a comma, and now the second value, and you can check it if you come in here, you probably can see it, or if you go into the documentation. So this verify phone number accepts a lot of arguments. The first one is the phone number, as I've said. The second one is the timeout. So the timeout is the time that the user has to input the code that the user received. In this case, it is in seconds, so the user has 60 seconds to receive the message and to input it into the edit text and code. Okay, and it has 60 seconds because we are going to place the time unit here, which I'm going to place into seconds. Now we pass along the activity, so this, and finally we place a callback that will handle what happens next. So that will handle failures or successes when it comes to the user receiving and using the code. So let's simply call it now. So mCallbacks, and we'll create this variable in a second, so don't worry. And that's it. Close that up. Okay, looks good. And now let's create the mCallbacks, which will handle basically everything. So I'm going to come in on top and say private phone of provider dot on verification state change callbacks mCallbacks. Okay, and now we are simply going to use these mCallbacks. Let's close that up. Below mSend, set onClick listener, we are going to say mCallbacks equals to new phone of provider on verification state changed callbacks, and on verification completed and on verification failed will appear, and this is exactly what we need. Okay, so this is basically the failure if the user inputs something wrong, if the message isn't sent, if something bad happens, this method will be called. Otherwise, if everything goes smoothly and the account is verified, then this method will be called, and this is the one that we are going to worry about today. I'm not going to worry about this one, simply going to close that up. And I'm going to say sign in with phone auth credential. Okay, and I'm going to pass on the credential with the phone of credential, which is the credential that we received through here. And this is a function that, again, we are going to create right now. So I'm going to click Alt, Enter, Enter. Okay, and now the process is really similar to the one that we did both in Uber and Tinder, which is just to call a sign-in with something. So it is basically the same for email, password, phone, whatever. As long as we have the credential, it is the same for everything. Okay, so let's say Firebase auth dot get instance dot sign in with credential, and we simply pass along the phone of credential. Okay, and now we add a non-complete listener just to know if it is successful or not, and in here we pass along this activity and we say new on complete listener. Don't forget to add a semicolon at the end. And on complete, now as you can see, we receive this variable called task, and this task basically tells us if the process of signing in with this phone credential was successful or not. And it is really easy to see that. We simply have to do if task.is successful. Okay, as easy as that. We don't need anything else. And we say if task is successful, then we simply will call a function called user is logged in, and it's a function that again will create. So I'm going to say alt enter enter, and what this function will do is to check if the user is different from null. So if there is a user logged in, and if it is, then we'll simply move on to the next activity. Okay, so I'm going to create the activity right now. Let's go activity, empty activity, it doesn't matter. And main page activity. I'm going to change the names later, but for now that's good enough. And I don't care about this. I'm going to close it. It is just so that we can move on to a new page. And in here we'll say Firebase user, user equals to, and we must import that, so alt enter, equals to Firebase auth.get instance dot get current user. And now we'll simply say if user different from null, and this will guarantee to us that the user is logged in. So even if the task is successful and something goes wrong, I don't know why, this is just to double check that a user is in fact logged in. So if it is, then we'll simply say start activity, new intent, get application context, and this is the same, and you've probably done this. This is just to start a new activity, main page activity dot class, and we'll finish the current one. So say finish, so that the user can't return to this page. Okay, but now a problem arises when where we aren't checking if the user is logged in before we do all of this. And if the user is logged in, then we don't want the user to keep on logging in. So that's not really smart. We want the user to go to the main page activity in this case. And to do that, we simply go up top, and before all of this, we check if the user is logged in. And if it is, then, well, all of this doesn't matter. We can simply move on to the main page activity. Okay, so these all should be working right now, but another important thing for us to test is, well, can we log out? Can we try with a different number? And to do this, we are going to go into the main page activity, open up activity main page, yeah, and in here we are simply going to add a logout button. And text logouts ID logouts. Okay, it's as easy as that. We are going to go into main page activity. We are going to add the button and logouts equals to find view by ID r.id.logout, and the logout process is extremely easy because, well, Firebase makes it literally a thing that takes one line of code, so you don't have to take care of basically anything. Okay, and to log out, you simply have to do firebase auth.getInstance.sign out, and that's it. The user is logged out at that moment. But we want to also make sure that the user gets out of the page that he is in, because this page is reserved for users that are logged in. And to do that, we simply create an intent equals to new intent get application context and main activity, which is the login activity. And we are going to add flags that will tell the activity that it must clear everything that's on top of it. So any activity that was started and is still running, then we want to kill everything off because the user logged out, and so the user no longer has access to nothing within the app apart from the login activity, obviously. Activity clear top. I'll say start activity intent and finish and return. Okay, so I was forgetting about one thing, which is we didn't use the code. Now, the thing is, Firebase doesn't always send the code, but it does sometimes, because sometimes it automatically approves the phone, so we don't have to worry about anything. But yeah, let's insert the code because, well, many times it does send the code and the user must get it somehow. Okay, so the first thing that we must do is to go into the callback and add on code sent. Okay, and this will be called whenever the code is sent to the user. Okay, and now we'll get two, or better yet, let's start with one. Okay, let's get one string. Okay, let's get one string, and I'll call it string and verification ID. Okay, now let's grab it, place it here, and say, and it is the same as this S, so I'm going to actually change it. And yeah, let's place it here. Okay, it will be this dot verification ID. This. Wait a second. Okay, let's just change this. I'm going to say verification, like so. Verification. Okay. Okay, make sure you have this, and this is set to global, otherwise it won't work. Okay, and I'm going to change the button text, the send button text, to .set text verify code. so that the user knows that the code has been sent. Okay, and yeah, so now all that we have to do is to translate the verification code into the verifiable credential that we can use in the sign in with phone off credential. And to do that, I'm going to create a function called private void verify phone number with code, and it will take in two variables. The first of which will be a verification ID, and the second will be code. Okay, so that's as easy as that. And now let's open this up, and we are going to say phone off credential. We'll create a credential out of those two arguments. Phone off credential equals to phone off provider dot get credential verification ID and code. The code is the 6-number code that the user gets as an SMS. Okay, and then we simply say sign in with phone off credential. Okay, as easy as that. We don't need to do pretty much anything else. We just have to call this, and let's say in here, if m verification ID different from null, then verify phone number with code. Verification ID and mcode.get text to string. And I'm actually going to remove. Okay, I'm going to remove the arguments, and I'm going simply to get the global values, because it is simpler and makes the code a bit cleaner. Mcode get text. Okay. Yeah, let's do it like this. And let's say if m verification code ID different from null, then simply verify number with code. Else start phone number verification. Start phone number verification. Okay, which would send the code. Okay, I believe that's just fine. Let's simply run the code and see if everything checks out. Okay, so I ran the code, and one thing that we forgot about, or better yet, I forgot about, is to go into project WhatsApp clone and add this line of the Google services and choose the most recent one. Okay, and in the app, module app, add the apply plugin, com Google GMS, wherever. I forgot, I believe that whenever you added Firebase to your Android project through the Android Studio, I believe I thought that it would add it automatically, but it turns out it doesn't, so we must do it manually. Okay, after you have those things, then we can go into our phone, and I'm going to start recording right now, and I'm going to open up the WhatsApp authentication, and as you can see, no user is present here, and I'm going to add my phone number, and I'm going to blur it, obviously, and let me just do it. Okay, and you must add the number corresponding to your country. I believe it is called indicator. So yeah, make sure you do that. Send verification code, and it logged in automatically. Okay, so the thing is, as I was telling you about, Firebase doesn't always send you a code. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, depending on your phone, depending on, I believe it must do something to do with your phone already being logged in somewhere, somehow, with Google services, so they trust your phone and they know that you are legit. Make sure you are not using an emulator again, make sure you are using a physical device. I'm going to reload the authentication page, And here we are. My phone number appears here, and yeah, the user is created. So now in the app, you are able to log out and go back to the first page. Okay, but that's all for today. I'm going to push this into the GitHub, and so you are more than free to get the code if you want to. And yeah, apart from now, the login system is done. I don't know, we might tweak some things in the future, but for now it is done. We are going to start working on the chat part, which is the most interesting part, obviously, of the app. So yeah, I hope to see you again tomorrow, and ciao!